This is Garis Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2-3 page essays on the themes of Masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 601, entitled Masculist Theorists Teaching Masculism to Media Successful Female Masculists. Description. This past year has seen the rise of the female masculist. For example, Just Pearly Things, that is Pearl Davis, has had nearly 500 million with a B views and over 1 million subscribers on YouTube in just a few years. This flyer aims to teach her and other similarly media successful female masculists more advanced masculist ideas, so that these ideas can hugely more efficiently reach the minds of millions of women, motivating them in very much their own female self-interest to learn masculist ideas, so that they are more likely to find men who will have relationships with them and be prepared to be fathers again and to help pay for the costs of raising kids. This flyer spells out why it is in women's self-interest to learn masculist ideas, that is, to become bi-conscious. Now the flyer itself. Masculist theorists teach masculism to media successful female masculists, by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Over the past year, we have seen the rise of the female masculists, with some of these women getting literally millions of hits. For example, Just Pearly Things, whose real name is Pearl Davis, aged 26. You can type in Just Pearly Things, that's all one word, on YouTube, then click on About, and you'll see that she has a spectacular 500 million with a B views and has over 1 million subscribers. There is no man in the manosphere who can compete with this. So what is the manosphere to make of this spectacular phenomenon? I interpret this to mean that women are really listening to her simply because she is a woman who is telling women what the manosphere has been saying for a decade about women, but since the manosphere is male by definition, any criticism of women by men, thanks to feminism, is treated by women as taboo. But when a woman says the same sort of thing, that is MGTOW and masculist ideas, then women are much more inclined to listen, as shown by her spectacular stats, that is, the nearly 500 million views she has had in only a few years. To masculist theorists, like myself, this offers an opportunity to spread masculist ideas more effectively than the usual approach taken by the manosphere over the past few years, that is, by men making MGTOW and masculist videos and aiming them at men. Masculist theorists are very aware that gender politics is very much a two-sided affair, that feminism is only half the story, and that men can't be liberated until women change their attitudes and expectations of men. Masculists claim, for example, that it's very much in women's self-interest to become a lot better informed of masculist ideas, so that women, in their own self-interest, vote, in capital letters, with men for the men fairing of the gender laws, so that men can be liberated in many ways that I will elaborate on a bit later in this flyer/video. Pearl Davis is not saying anything that the manosphere has not already dreamt up already. She is not saying anything original. Personally, I've made 600 masculist and MGTOW videos over a period of 6 years, so I obviously have a reasonable knowledge of what the MGTOWs and masculists are saying. I have also watched quite a few of Pearl Davis's videos, so I'm in a position to make comparisons between what she says and what the manosphere says. I have yet to hear anything strikingly new in what she says, so this flyer is aimed at her and to similarly media successful female masculists to teach them more about masculist ideas, so they can then spread these ideas to women in a far more effective way than male MGTOWs and masculists can to women. So, in concrete terms, I hope that this flyer/video reaches Pearl Davis so that she can be exposed to more advanced ideas coming from the Masculists and MGTOWs, so that she can improve the intellectual scope of what she is saying to her audiences currently. The main message of this flyer/video to her and other female Masculists is that it is very much in women's self-interest to learn more Masculist ideas so that women's lives can be improved as well as men's. This might sound a bit counterintuitive at first, so I need to explain a bit. How can learning more about Masculist ideas help women? Most of the rest of this flyer attempts to answer this question. The core idea of Masculism is that it is a rebellion by men against being man-slaves to women, working for women for decades of men's lives. Masculists point out to women that it was men who liberated women to become female careerists by giving women science-based medicine, so women now have a life expectancy of 85 years. So even those women who take a few years off to raise small children still have a career window of half a century. So the Masculists are standing up and pointing the finger at women, telling them with very strong moral tones, quote, "Now that you women can work, you must work. Anything else is man's slavery, and man's slavery will get you killed." To Masculists, man's slavery is slavery, and hence hated and a war issue. The Masculists are at war against the fluffies, that is a Masculist term for a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off the labour and money of a man for decades of his life. One of the major political goals of the Masculists is to wipe fluffies off the face of the earth by effectively exterminating them, by totally ignoring them, not even pumping and dumping them, so that they rot on the shelf, dying a slow, miserable death, manless, loveless, sexless, babyless, and utterly rejected, spat at. Masculists claim that in today's world, about 80% of young women choose to become fluffies by becoming fluffy crappers, that is, by choosing to study fluffy crap majors at high school, so are forced to study more fluffy crap majors at college, so that they end up as fluffies as adults, who then manslave and divorce rape men. Masculists have a hatred of fluffies and avoid them like the plague. So when most men become masculistic in the coming years, those women who don't bother to FIP up, in brackets, FIP, that's F-I-P, equals financially independent person, by getting career competent educations, brackets, for example, for upper middle class women in the STEM fields and the professions, close brackets, will be punished severely by men, masculistic men, in capital letters, by not getting one. Most young women know that it is almost impossible to be both a full-time careerist and to take care of very small children at the same time. So most women want to have a man in their lives who is prepared to help pay for the costs of the kid. Single mothers have a notorious track record with raising sons alone. These single mother sons have much worse stats when it comes to depression, alcoholism, crime, suicide, drugs, dropping out of high school, etc. So women need to learn Masculist ideas so that they FIP up and not be punished by a growing number of masculistic men who see fluffies as manslaving, divorce-raping, parasitic vermin, and punish them severely by totally ignoring them. It's therefore in women's self-interest, if they want to have a man in their lives, to FIP up, to pull their own financial weight, and not expect to parasite off the money and labour of a man, and hence risk being forced into a slow, miserable death by being manless, forced to rot on the shelf. Masculists tell young women that the main reason why boyfriend after boyfriend refuses to give her his sperm is that the divorce courts have been taken over by the fluffy feminists who know nothing about masculism, who see gender oppression as a one-way street, since that is what feminism teaches them. Monoconscious feminists, in brackets, that is, who have only had their feminist consciousnesses raised, know nothing about how women oppress men, in brackets, for example, with decades-lasting man-slavery, divorce, rape, forced fathering, etc., have traditional expectations of men that is, seeing men as cash machines who exist on this earth to pay for women to have babies, which is an attitude that the Masculists aim to kill off, forcing women to fip up or die. The fluffy feminists, in all their hypocrisy, have taken over the divorce courts and made divorce so toxic for men that in many Western countries now 2/3 of young men refuse to marry and reject paternity, thus causing millions of women to become babyless, which is increasingly terrifying young women as they see the incidence of MGTOW and masculism rise and rise amongst young men. Masculists aim to create a FIP society in which both sexes, especially young women, are socialised and educated to be FIPs, so that the divorce courts can be thoroughly reformed, so that alimony is thrown out, since all women in a FIP society will be FIPs. Custody of children is made joint by default. There is no halving of wealth nor stuff, since divorce will be based on the principle of financial independence of both parties in the divorce, since both parties are FIPs. Masculists want the establishment of GECs, that's GECs, Gender Equality Committees, in the parliaments that consist half of female feminists and half of male masculists, so that the gender issues of both sexes are dealt with equally. The male half of these GECs will then legislate the PARA, that's paternity rejection right, so that a man has the legislated right to reject an unwanted pregnancy. If the mother continues the pregnancy, then after he has filled in a para-government form, she is totally responsible for the financial costs of the kid. She can afford to do this since she will be a FIP. The GECs will also legislate the OPTAB, OPTAB, obligatory paternity testing at birth for all births, to block women's paternity fraud, which oppresses men for decades of their lives, forcing a man to pay for a kid that not only does he not want, but is, in capital letters, not even his. As masculinist ideas spread across the planet, those women who do not bother to inform themselves of masculinist ideas will be seen increasingly by masculisted men as MFBs, that is, monoconscious feminazi bigots, and hence be rejected by men. Masculists target the monoconscious male feminist boyfriends of monoconscious feminists by teaching these men masculism, so that these men become bi-conscious, who then view the monoconsciousness of their feminist girlfriends as hypocritical and bigoted, given that women oppress men worse than vice versa. These bi-conscious masculist boyfriends will then become disgusted with their monoconscious feminist girlfriends and dump them. Thus, as most men become bi-conscious, those women who remain monoconscious, that is, who don't bother to learn masculinist ideas, will make themselves uncompetitive relative to bi-conscious feminists, who are a lot nicer to be with for men, since bi-conscious feminists are a lot less feminazi bitchy towards men, since they have learned that gender oppression is a two-way street. Whereas a monoconscious feminist is of necessity angry at men for the ways that men oppress women, but don't have that feminist anger cancelled by a corresponding masculist anger at women for the many decades lasting gender crimes that women perpetrate against men. Monoconscious feminists will lose their boyfriends in their millions, and then notice that these ex-boyfriends are pairing off with bi-conscious feminists. Thus, it is in monoconscious feminists' self-interest to become bi-conscious if they want to hold on to their boyfriends. Men, MGTOWs and Masculists, will continue to boycott marriage and paternity until we live in a FIP society. So the gender laws need to be men-fared, so women need to vote with men towards that end. If women want men to help them with the costs of raising a kid, then the divorce courts have to be thoroughly reformed by creating a FIP society. Thus, there are many reasons why it is in the self-interest of women to become bi-conscious, that is, to learn masculinist ideas, so that men are prepared to be fathers again. As masculinist ideas spread and spread, monoconscious feminists will die out, seen as being old-fashioned and bigoted, to be spat at by men, and to be severely punished by men by not getting one. I hope the above has provided Pearl Davis and other female masculists with new masculist ideas that currently are not part of her/their gender political repertoire that will make her more effective as a gender political influencer with women. If so, then maybe millions of women will be more efficiently exposed to masculist ideas, and that will increase the odds of the masculists creating a FIP society which will liberate men, that is millions and later billions of men. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Man's Slaves to Women, an e-textbook of 600 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses, freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.